If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead no more than 10 minutes. Hello, welcome. I am predicting that Vice President Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis due to a bird strike into Busch Stadium. In the area code 314, it will be a burning bush, as described in Exodus 3:14. On September 25th, 2024, she will be replaced by Michelle Obama, and then Barack Obama will replace Michelle. Harris's plane is predicted to crash in St. Louis on Wednesday morning at 3 a.m. on September 25th. Because Simon and Garfunkel's first studio album was named Wednesday Morning 3 a.m., but her flight is predicted to depart Los Angeles LAX Airport on September 24th. I am predicting that former President Jimmy Carter will die on September 21st, and that his prophetic funeral, in which Trump will sit next to Obama, will be on September 26th. It is predicted that President Trump will die from a heart attack on the same day as Jimmy Carter's funeral on September 26th. It is also predicted that Trump's heart attack will be triggered by a direct energy weapon that will target Trump through Bluetooth technology. The components inside the pointy thing that Trump took will facilitate this. And it is believed that this direct energy weapon will be used by Barack Obama when he is sitting next to Trump at the funeral. I am predicting that dirty bombs will explode in Manhattan, New York City, and there will be a large-scale evacuation on September 27th. I am predicting that Israel will bomb Iran on September 28th. I am predicting that singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die on September 25th. Either Paul Simon or Kamala Harris will die at 3 a.m. on Wednesday morning on September 25th. I am predicting that a solar flare will erupt on the surface of the sun and send a coronal mass ejection that will hit Earth on October 3rd, 2024. Which will knock out America's power grid and will lead to food shortages. The hit of the coronal mass ejection, predicted for October 3rd, that will knock out the power grid will also knock many planes out of the sky. October 3rd, the Feast of Trumpets in the Hebrew calendar, will be the day of the resurrection rapture event. It will be the first of 3 raptures. I am predicting that on October 4th, 2024, the key will open the bottomless pit and fallen angels will cross over into the earthly realm. October 4th will be a symbolic beginning to the 5th trumpet judgment that is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm. October 4th will be a symbolic beginning to demons pretending to be aliens, and it is possible that on October 4th, Pope Francis will announce that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. This will immediately give Pope Francis, the Antichrist, supreme power over governments of the world. At some point, there will be a massive Mary apparition that will deceive the masses, because all Mary apparitions in history have been demons pretending to be Mary. October 4th will be a symbolic beginning to a zombie pandemic and the masses becoming demonically possessed that will be facilitated through the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist and 5G frequencies. October 4th will be a symbolic beginning to the coming genocide politicide in America. It is predicted that after Kamala Harris's death in a plane crash, Joe Biden will appoint Michelle Obama as his vice president, I am predicting that Joe Biden will step down and Michelle Obama will become the 47th president on October 12th, 2024. I am predicting that President Michelle Obama will appoint Barack Obama as the 51st vice president on October 12th, 2024. I am predicting that Michelle Obama will step down and Barack Obama will become the 48th president on November 2nd, 2024. November 24th, 2024, the 8th day of the Feast of Tabernacles, will be the date of the second of 3 raptures. It is predicted that on November 16th, 2024, the historic barge that has been stuck on the rocks of the Niagara River for over 100 years will finally break free and crash over Niagara Falls. The reason for this is that Niagara Falls is Noah's flood symbolism, and the barge was involved in the most dramatic rescue in the history of Niagara Falls, symbolic of Noah's Ark. Niagara in the native language means straight, narrow way, and Niagara's Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the CN Tower in downtown Toronto, because Toronto and its tower are symbolic of the Tower of Babel. In a game of horseshoes, the object is to aim the horseshoe and throw it at the metal stick, which is why the Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the metal stick that is the CN Tower. God is communicating that as testament for those who will live in the 1,000 years of Christ's reign on earth, the geography of North America will, as a result of a massive earthquake, be divided by a body of water from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi Delta. This destruction will be judgment on America and Canada for attempting to divide God's land, Israel. When this happens, the water in the Great Lakes will spill out over southern Ontario and Toronto. I am predicting that on November 23rd, 2024, there will be a catastrophic asteroid hit of Earth, which will trigger the eruption of Yellowstone volcano, and will cause the volcano in the Canary Islands to collapse into the Atlantic Ocean and send a mega tsunami towards the east coast. The asteroid will also trigger a mega landslide on Hawaii Island that will trigger a mega tsunami that will hit the west coast. It will also trigger the collapse of the Hoover Dam, which will cause a water panic in California, and many other devastating earthquakes. November 23rd will also be the date of the third of the 3 raptures. President Trump and RFK Jr. are the 2 witnesses in Bible prophecy in Revelation chapter 11. It is predicted that RFK Jr. will be shot and killed on November 7th, 2024. The day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, will be on December 26th, 2024. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. All right, in this video, I'm documenting this amazing story that God has told through his big picture of prophetic end times signs, which is only being explained on this channel. This prediction that Paul Simon, the singer and songwriter, will die on September 25th, 2024. This is an amazing story. It is involving so many different things, and what can I tell you? God is extremely brilliant. And this story that God is telling contains extremely important information that everyone needs to know, as is always the case. This email is documenting the prediction that singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die on September 25th, 2024. As we can see, this email was composed on September 19th, okay, ahead of time. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I'll forward this to you. The reason why this was composed on September 19th is because of the prophetic signs we received on September 19th. That revealed the date that Paul Simon will die on September 25th. It's so amazing. Prior to September 19th, we expected either Paul Simon to die or a relevant prophetic sign or signs plural. We received the relevant signs, and these signs reveal the date on which Paul Simon will die, which will be September 25th. The same date it is expected that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash into a baseball stadium. This is relevant because Paul Simon is known to be an avid baseball fan, and the big sign on this day was a baseball sign. Simon once played catch with his audience while performing a concert near where he grew up and played baseball as a kid. When he was recently with his wife in court, he told the judge that after the hearing, they were going to watch their kid play baseball. Okay? Simon is known for being a New York Yankees fan. And now I'm going to get into something, but I first want to interject here that the reason why baseball is so important in God's big picture of signs is that it symbolizes America. James Earl Jones, who recently died, who had, and for whom it had been known that his death would be a major prophetic sign since 2019. Since 2019, I knew that James Earl Jones's death would be a massive prophetic sign that indicates the end is now and the destruction is now. And James Earl Jones died on the date 9/9, which, by the way, is symbolic of God's judgment. The number 9 from the Bible, it symbolizes this. James Earl Jones starred in the most iconic baseball movie ever made, in which he delivered a famous monologue in which he said that America could be great again. And he talked about America's history being intertwined with baseball. The movie Field of Dreams is about the 1919 Chicago Black Sox. And baseball, in fact, goes back beyond 1919. It goes back into the middle of the 19th century. Baseball is a part of American history. It is intertwined with American history, and it symbolizes America and God's hand on America. It is America's sport, America's pastime, as it is said. So it's very important and very symbolic. This is why Kamala Harris's plane will crash into a baseball stadium right near the Gateway Arch. Because in the Bible, judgment on a people symbolically begins at the gates, or the gate. And the Gateway Arch will be symbolic of this, beginning of destruction, beginning at the gate with her crash in her plane into a baseball stadium, which will lead to her replacement with the Antichrist, Barack Obama. Okay, he will become the president again as a result of this plane crash. So the point is, too, that, well, Barack Obama is also known for being a baseball fan, but specifically the Chicago White Sox, because of the Chicago Black Sox and the history, and on and on, and on and on and on. This is just one more example, this video here, of God using baseball in such an extraordinarily beautiful way. So let's begin the story here. Simon is known for being a New York Yankees fan. And on April 25th, 1999, he played his song, Mrs. Robinson, in center field of Yankee Stadium. It was in honor of famous Yankee Joe DiMaggio, who had recently passed away. The song, Mrs. Robinson, contains the lyric that immortalizes Joe DiMaggio. Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? Our nation turns its lonely eyes to you. Woo, woo, woo. What's that you say, Mrs. Robinson? Joltin' Joe has left and gone away. So you all know the song, right? If you didn't, maybe the singing that I just did helps you remember this very famous song of Paul Simon's, Mrs. Robinson. The recognition that Mrs. Robinson is a very prophetic sign. So the thing about why God is using Paul Simon, the pioneer of folk rock, is because of the numerous songs that he has sung, his hits, that have prophetic symbolic meaning. This being one of them, Mrs. Robinson, is a hint at Michelle Robinson. Her maiden name is Robinson before she took the name Obama. In fact, I think she still goes by Michelle Robinson Obama. But that's the prophetic significance of Mrs. Robinson here. Okay, and speaking of baseball, we have Brooks Robinson, which is also very prophetic, and there's lots to be said about him. But he is known as Mr. Hoover. Long story, or I won't get into explaining it, but his nickname was Mr. Hoover because he was the vacuum at third base. And God has associated Paul Simon, a baseball fan, with the Hoover Dam, with bridge over troubled water, for example. So, okay, so it goes on and on and on. But so Mrs. Robinson, we have it being sung in a baseball stadium. And Michelle Robinson Obama will become the president. She will replace Kamala Harris as vice president first before Joe Biden is predicted to step down on October 12th, and she becomes the president on October 12th. But first, she will replace she will replace Kamala Harris after her death into a baseball stadium, which is why Paul Simon sang Mrs. Robinson in a baseball stadium. Not only that, though, it's now clear that Paul Simon will die on the same day as Kamala Harris's predicted crash into a baseball stadium. Okay. Simon sang Mrs. Robinson and the lyrics about Joe DiMaggio 48 days after DiMaggio died. These mysterious lyrics about Joe DiMaggio were designed by God to point to Simon's eventual performance shortly after DiMaggio passed away. This is because the Antichrist is the future 48th president, who will be appointed the vice president by Mrs. Michelle Robinson Obama. She will then step down, and the 44th president will become the president again. This is why, on September 19th, 2024, one of the signs was the news of the scandal that broke regarding the GOP candidate for governor of the 4+4+4th state, Mark Robinson, which hints at Michelle Robinson, and the 44th president. That's why he's running for governor of the 4+4+4th state. September 19th, 2024 is 44 days before it is predicted that Michelle Robinson will step down and the 44th president will become the president again on November 2nd, 2024. Okay? That's amazing because November 2nd was known quite a while ago, and this is just more confirmation. These prophetic signs that occurred on September 19th. I didn't even know that September 19th was 44 days before the 44th president will become the president again. Before Simon played for the crowd, at Yankee Stadium, the announcer said that Joe DiMaggio had been immortalized in Simon's song, Mrs. Robinson. Joe DiMaggio is known for having arranged the funeral for Marilyn Monroe after she died, even though they had divorced years earlier and she had remarried and divorced again, for that matter. And by the way, she remarried after Joe DiMaggio, Arthur Miller, who is famous for writing the play Death of a Salesman. And that's because it's a hint at the death of a saleswoman, Kamala Harris, because that's all that she is. She is a vacuum. She is an empty vessel. She is an empty person. She is simply a salesperson for the Democrat Party. That's all. And so anyway, through the death of Kamala Harris on the same day of Paul Simon, this will all be pointed to because, again, Paul Simon is about Joe DiMaggio, who is about Marilyn Monroe, who married Arthur Miller after Joe DiMaggio. Okay. So Joe DiMaggio, though, is known for having arranged the funeral for Marilyn Monroe after she died, even though they had divorced years earlier and she had remarried and divorced again. He famously bent over her coffin and twice said that he loved her. This connection to Simon having immortalized Joe DiMaggio is relevant because of what God pointed to through the acting career of Marilyn Monroe. One of the most iconic pop culture images of the 20th century is Marilyn Monroe's white dress blown upwards by a passing subway train as she's standing on top of a subway grate. This is from the movie The 7-Year Itch. In Bible prophecy, the Antichrist's rule is for a symbolic 7 years. Monroe died exactly 4+4+4 months after the birth of the 44th president. The name Obama is equal to 32 in simple English gematria. Obama's birth was exactly 320 weeks after the release of the movie The 7-Year Itch. The titular phrase, which refers to waning interest in a monogamous relationship after 7 years of marriage, has been used by psychologists. Since leaving the White House, Since leaving the White House in 2017, Obama has had a 7-year itch. 7 years later now, 2024. He has been missing his role in the White House, but in the meantime has been part of the current administration behind the scenes. So this 7-year itch movie is clearly a point to Barack Obama because the birth of Barack Obama connects prophetically, astoundingly, to the date of the release of the movie and the date of the death of Marilyn Monroe. Monroe starred in a movie named Monkey Business. It was released on April 5th, 1952, 9 years, 10 months, and 30 days before Monroe died. 9 years, 10 months, and 30 days hints at 913, and G 913 in Strong's Greek Bible Concordance, which is the word, proper noun, Barak. And also again, Monroe died 4 plus 4 plus 4 months after the birth of Barack Obama. Okay, so Monroe died 4 plus 4 plus 4 months after the birth of Barack Obama, and she died 9 years and 10 months and 30 days, which hints at Barack Obama, after the release of the movie Monkey Business. By the way, in an interview a few years ago, Barack Obama emptied his pockets and presented a figurine of a monkey. The Hindu god Hanuman, a monkey man. Okay. Barack Obama, as the Antichrist, will preside over an epidemic of monkeypox among those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist. That's what's coming. An epidemic of monkeypox among those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, because monkeypox has decimated their immune system. That's the truth. Okay? And so they're susceptible to these things that they wouldn't have otherwise been. The people that haven't taken the mark of the Antichrist will not be getting monkeypox. But the ones that have destroyed their immune system through the controversial pointy thing, that was an untested new technology, etc., are going to have an epidemic of monkeypox. And Barack Obama will preside over this. Monkey Business, the movie Monkey Business, is a comedy about an elixir of youth accidentally made by a chimpanzee in a laboratory. The Antichrist and demons pretending to be aliens will offer an elixir of youth to combat the monkeypox epidemic and other health crises. Monkey Business was released on September 5th, 1952, 9 plus 11th prime years, in other words, 71, the 20th prime number, so 9 plus 11th prime number of years, 11 months and 9 days, before the WHO declared Mpox to be a health emergency on August 14th, 2024. So you had a bunch of 9s and 11s there. Fallen angels will pretend to be demons, and this is alluded to in Revelation chapter 9, which is symbolized by Revelation 9:11, which describes King Abaddon and the king of destruction that emerges with his fallen angels out of the bottomless pit. Monroe died in Los Angeles, which God uses to hint at fallen angels. The name, Los Angeles. 9 years, 10 months, and 30 days, which hints at Barak, the word, in the Greek concordance. After Monkey Business was released, And Monroe died 4 plus 4 plus 4 months after the birth of the 44th president, Antichrist. Marilyn Monroe was also in the movie As Young as You Feel, in which the theme of the plot is also about deception and being younger. This movie was released on June 15th, 1951, exactly 4 times 4 times 4 weeks before the release of Monkey Business, the plot of which is also about an elixir of youth. Michelle Robinson Obama will be made the vice president by Joe Biden after Kamala Harris is predicted to die in a plane crash into a baseball stadium on September 25th, 2024. Harris's predicted crash, or death, I should say, on September 25th will be exactly 65 months after Joe Biden announced his candidacy for president on April 25th, 2019. 65, as in the 65 months between Biden's announcement of his candidacy and Harris's predicted death, 65 is the 23rd semi-prime number, and the basketball president wore jersey number 23 in high school. The 44th president will have a second presidency through Joe Biden, and Joe Biden announced his candidacy exactly 20 years, which is 4 times 4 plus 4 years, after Paul Simon sang Mrs. Robinson in Yankee Stadium in tribute to Joe DiMaggio on April 25th, 1999. In other words, Joe DiMaggio connects to Joseph Biden. But also, I just explained how, with a time period, Paul Simon's singing in a baseball stadium connects to the date on which it is predicted that he will die, and Kamala Harris will crash into a baseball stadium, leading to Michelle Robinson and Paul Simon sang Mrs. Robinson. Okay, but also this 20 years connection between Joseph Biden and Joseph DiMaggio is important. This is because in the Bible, the 11th son of the third patriarch is Joseph. The day of the baseball sign and Mark Robinson sign on September 19th, 2024 was 9 times 1,031 days after Paul Simon sang Mrs. Robinson in tribute to Joe DiMaggio. The number 1,031 hints at Joseph, the 11th son of the third patriarch. And at the time, Paul Simon, when he sang Mrs. Robinson in the stadium, had released 9 solo albums. This is the reason for 9 times 1,031 days. On 3/11 in 2021, Joseph Biden made his first public address after having been installed president through the shoplifted referendum, and he said that 3/11 in 2021 was the anniversary of the CVD disease on 3/11 in 2020. In other words, the date 3/11 symbolizes this. Joseph Biden's speech on 3/11, 2021 regarded the CVD thing, the pointy thing, that poisons a person's blood. This is because G131 in Strong's Greek Concordance is the word for blood disease. Joseph DiMaggio started Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospitals, and one of the things they specialize in is blood disorders, which is what a person gets after they have taken the pointy thing, which is why Joseph Biden delivered his big pointy thing speech right at the time when it was first coming out on the date 3/11 because of G131, which means blood disease. There's lots more to be said and confirmations to prove what I've just said about 3/11/2021. It was exactly, for example, by the way, it was the day that Obama and Michelle Robinson took the thing. That was the same day. The Antichrist took the thing on the day that Biden touted the thing on 3/11 because of G131, because it poisons a person's blood. But it was 90 days after the SN9 rocket fell off of its platform on December 11th, 2020, on the same day that Trump, God's trumpet, trumpeted the approval of the pointy thing. Well, anyway, so there's lots to say about 3/11/2021. Joseph DiMaggio started Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospitals, and one of the things they specialize in is blood disorders. The location of Harris's predicted plane crash in St. Louis will point to the CVD pointy things. Okay, and the reason why that is because St. Louis is near where the two eclipses that traversed over America in 2017 and 24 crossed each other and engendered an X, which is symbolic of chromosomes which are altered by the CVD pointy thing. X's are about their midpoints, two lines that cross each other at the middle, and the middle date of the two eclipses that engendered an X was December 14th, 2020, the day that the first American took the thing outside of a trial. And by the way, the thing is the mark of the Antichrist. In its current form, it does not need an additional something to go with it, such as an additional technology or false form of religious worship or a supposed new age of dispensation after supposedly all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured. In fact, one of the main reasons why the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is in fact judgment for this particular doctrine, which Jesus said he hates in Revelation chapter 2 and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this Nicolaitan doctrine, which is the doctrine of our day in the American evangelical church, once saved, always saved, Calvinism, free grace, dispensationalism, and sovereign grace, Reformed theology. Jesus hates this theology. Anyway, I know far better than you the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction, and it is to prove the things that I have just said. And the commonly held objections that people have based on their understanding of Bible prophecy are answered in the must-watch snake bite video on this channel. But make no mistake, when this prediction comes to pass, it will prove that the commonly held objections for why this thing can't be the mark of the Antichrist are incorrect. Case closed. End of debate. That's the purpose of the prediction. And I know far better than you the reason and purpose for this prediction. The reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction. Case closed. End of debate. It's over. It is the mark of the Antichrist. Now, nowhere in the Bible does it say that one can't repent after having taken the mark of the Antichrist. Okay, so this is why the date of her predicted death will connect to the announcement of Joseph Biden's candidacy, and why this in turn connects to Joseph DiMaggio and his sick children's hospitals, which also points to monkeypox through Marilyn Monroe. Now, I also need to add one thing here, is that the sick, twisted society that we live in broke the social contract when the narcissistic baby boomer generation, the elders, demanded the sacrifice of the children in order to protect them. Because everyone knew, of course, that the CVD did not affect children, unless, of course, they were completely brainwashed and were true COVIDian cultists. Everyone knew that. There was no reason for kids to take the thing, only to stop the spread in order to protect the older generation. But this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen. You're not allowed to do that. This hasn't happened in history. The older generation does not sacrifice the younger generation. Only in our wicked, selfish, corrupt age could this have happened, where the godless, narcissistic baby boomer generation that completely rejected God in the 1960s and 70s, could this have happened? And the price will be paid soon. Judgment is coming. But this is why God is pointing to Joe DiMaggio, who started Joe DiMaggio's sick children's hospitals, which specialize in blood disorders. God is very angry about this. Additionally, Marilyn Monroe died from an overdose of barbiturates that was administered with a pointy thing. Her acting roles point to monkeypox and a coming promise of immortality through an elixir of youth that will be administered with a thing. At the time of her death, she was having a sexual affair with the 35th president. The movie The Graduate is about a character named Mrs. Robinson who is having a sexual affair. That's the song Mrs. Robinson was composed for the movie. It's an interesting story in itself. Paul Simon didn't want to do such a thing, create a pop song for a mainstream Hollywood movie, but he ended up doing it, and it became a big hit. And anyway, so that's The Graduate, but The Graduate is about a sexual affair, all right? And this is why Paul Simon performed Mrs. Robinson after the death of DiMaggio, who was known for his role after the death of Monroe, who died from a pointy thing, and acted in movies about regaining youth. DiMaggio was a lover of Monroe, who at the time of her death was having an affair with the 35th president. The 35th president died in his vehicle on the on-ramp to the I-35 while serving in the White House. This is why Paul Simon performed Mrs. Robinson exactly 305 months, which hints at 35, before Simon's predicted death and the predicted death of Harris in her vehicle while she is serving in the White House, just like the 35th president. So it's all full circle. Furthermore, the 35th president's presidency is referred to as Camelot, which hints at Kamala. On September 19th, 2024, we received the prophetic sign involving Mark Robinson and a baseball sign that occurred in the city with the area code 305. Again, Paul Simon performed in the baseball stadium 305 months before the predicted death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash and his predicted death, but her crash will be into a baseball stadium. And on September 19th, the date that God has pointed to regarding Paul Simon, we had the sign involving Mark Robinson and the prophetic sign in the baseball stadium in the area code 305, which is why the 305 months. It's amazing. In the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment. Paul Simon's 9th album was released on November 18th, 1997, 11 times 23 days before Simon sang Mrs. Robinson at Yankee Stadium. 1123 is the 188th prime number, and H188 is the word woe exclamation mark. used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. Simon's 9th album reached number 42 on the Billboard Pop chart. In Bible prophecy, the number 42 symbolizes slaughter and the period of the Antichrist. The number 19 is symbolic of God's perfect judgment. The number 9 symbolizes God's judgment, and the number 10 symbolizes God's perfect order from the Bible. Hence, 9 plus 10, 19, equals God's perfect judgment. Simon's 9th album was released exactly 19 years after the poisoning of people's blood. So just before I get into that, Simon and Garfunkel's prophetic reunion concert was on the date 9/19, and this date 9/19 in 2024, as I'm explaining, is a Paul Simon sign. All right? So that's also why the 9th studio album was released exactly 19 years after the poisoning of people's blood through things, pointy things, in the Jonestown suicide murder massacre. The Jonestown suicide murder massacre was 666 days after Jimmy Carter's inauguration, which was the day after Paul Simon performed his song American Tune at Carter's pre-inaugural ball. Okay, so let me just pause here. If you didn't know, the Jonestown suicide murder massacre involved pointy things. They did also drink the Kool-Aid to speed up the process, but they poisoned their blood through pointy things in this mass suicide murder. More is explained on this very, very important subject in the must-watch Jonestown video on this channel, okay? Now, as I was saying, Paul's 9th studio album was released a prophetic number of days, an extremely prophetic number of days, because it hints at this number that God uses frequently, this number 188, because of whoa exclamation mark, before he sang Mrs. Robinson. So now we have a connection to confirm the relevance of his 9th studio album, okay? Because it was released this prophetic number of days before he sang Mrs. Robinson in Yankee Stadium, which we've already established as being prophetic. Now, 19 years before the 9th studio album, and I explained why 9 and 19 together are relevant, especially in terms of Paul Simon, was this massacre involving pointy things, the Jonestown suicide murder massacre, okay, which is very important, happened during Carter's presidency, and it was 666 days after the beginning of Carter's presidency, and that's related to Paul Simon because he sang American Tune at the beginning of Carter's presidency. That was the symbolic beginning of Carter's presidency, with Paul Simon, Paul Simon being very prophetic, singing American Tune, a melancholy tune about America. And Carter's ending of his presidency is also symbolic because it ended with 444 days, coinciding with the 444-day Iran hostage crisis, which hinted at the 44th president, Antichrist, whose number in Bible prophecy is 666. And that's why the 666 days to the Jonestown, because the Jonestown massacre with the cult, which was a leftist communist cult, is a complete parallel with Barack Obama and the political cult, which is a religious cult, just like Jonestown was a political cult, but it was religious because communism is a religion. Anyway, Jonestown is completely a parallel because Jim Jones is symbolic of the Antichrist, the cult leader, right? And that's what's happening today. The spirit of Antichrist is bringing about for this cult that is already present for its leader to take over, the 44th president. Again, that's why the Jonestown massacre was 666 days after the beginning of the Carter presidency, but the end of the Carter presidency points to Barack Obama, the 44th president, who is a Jim Jones, who will mandate, like he did for the people at Jonestown, people take the thing which causes suicide, and those go along, will be forced to go along like he did at the Jonestown, and that will be a murder. Okay. And that, by the way, is past tense. That's already happened. Okay? People have already been murdered, just like in Jonestown. Okay? One of the hostages went on a hunger strike. And because of the coming food shortages, the Antichrist will compel people to make a decision to take the thing through restricting food to those who refuse to take it. Only the good citizens will have the food that is in short supply. Simon's 9th studio album was for his Broadway musical that cost $11 million. Okay, 9/11. By the way, Paul Simon, prophetic sign when he sang on Saturday Night Live in Manhattan a few days after 9/11. And he also sang at the memorial on the 10th anniversary. So Paul Simon, furthermore, is synonymous with New York City. And his 9th studio album was for his Broadway musical that cost $11 million. And the musical is considered to be one of the biggest flops in Broadway history. God uses records for his signs. This is a record. It was a record flop. The 9th album and $11 million hinted at the warning of judgment on 9/11, and also Revelation 9/11 and the coming mass demonic possession of those who have taken the pointy thing. By the way, Paul Simon's prophetic reunion concert in Central Park was 9 months and 11 days after John Lennon was shot and killed next to Central Park. Barack Obama is a murderer, and before becoming the president again, Mrs. Michelle Robinson, will make him the 51st vice president. The musical, Paul Simon's musical, is about a character who is a murderer and immigrant from Puerto Rico, the 51st state. On Simon's 9th album is a song titled Born in Puerto Rico. In 2010, Simon's musical was performed in Central Park. The baseball sign and Mark Robinson sign on September 19, 2024 were exactly 43 years after Simon and Garfunkel's historic reunion concert in Central Park, in which they performed Mrs. Robinson, and the last song played was Late in the Evening, a Latin American style song. 43 years is relevant because it hints at 4 plus 3 and 7, and Paul Simon is symbolism for the sound of silence that was heard in heaven in Revelation chapter 8 before the 7 trumpet judgments and destruction begins. That's why Paul Simon's death will coincide with the beginning of destruction. It'll be a brief moment of silence. That's why I think he'll die maybe even a half hour before Kamala Harris dies. But because the sound of silence was heard for a half hour, as it says in the Bible. And that's also why his most recent and last album is named 7 Songs. So that's why for 40 years plus 30 plus 40 years plus 3 years, which would hint at 7. The baseball sign we received on September 19th, 2024. Okay, so I've been talking about how Paul Simon is related to baseball, and I've been talking about September 19th. Now I'm going to explain the baseball sign that occurred on September 19th. So the baseball sign we received on September 19th was star baseball player Shohei Ohtani's 51st home run and 51st stolen base for the season. The first time ever in baseball history that 51-51 was achieved. The name Ohtani and this first ever achievement hints at Obama the first black affirmative action president, the first time that 51-51 had been reached, that included 51 stolen bases, hinted at the 51st vice president, future 51st vice president, Barack Obama, and the first time the presidency has been shoplifted. September 19th, 2024 is also 5 + 1 days before it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash into a baseball stadium on the day that Paul Simon is predicted to die. On September 19th, not only did Ohtani reach this unprecedented level, but he had what is being called the best ever offensive baseball game. So it just so happens that with this big night, this big level that the whole baseball world was watching and waiting for, he actually on the same night had a spectacular best ever in baseball history offensive night. It's the way God would do it. He would do that to emphasize the significance of what I'm talking about. So for example, he had 6 hits in 6 at-bats. This hints at Simon's death and Harris's plane crash 6 days later into a baseball stadium. He also became the first person in history to hit 3 home runs and steal 2 bases in the same game. And this too hints at 3 times 2 days before Simon's predicted death and Harris's predicted plane crash into a baseball stadium. As well, the name Obama, which hints at Ohtani, is equal to 32 in simple English gematria. Also, home run balls that are hit high into the air and fall back to earth into the stadium point to Harris's plane crash from high in the air and into a baseball stadium. Furthermore, her plane will have departed Los Angeles, and her plane crash will be symbolic of fallen angels. Before Ohtani reached 51-51 on September 19th, 2024, he reached 50-50 on the same night. This was the big level that everyone was watching for. The first person to ever hit 50 home runs and steal 50 bases in the same season. But he did both of these on the same night. Ohtani's pursuit, and he ended at 51-51. He didn't end at 51-50 or 51-52. God designed it perfectly. He was 3 home runs shy of 51 and 2 stolen bases shy of 51. That's what he did on that night. And that too hinted at Obama, as I just explained, because of 32 and 3 times 2 days. Okay. Ohtani's pursuit of 50-50 was being watched by the baseball world, and it was celebrated once it was reached on September 19th. This hinted at the exact 5 years and 5 months between the date Joe Biden announced his candidacy and the predicted date that Harris will die in a plane crash into a baseball stadium. Shohei Ohtani is a baseball player from Japan. All right, so Shohei Ohtani is this big phenomenon. This is the most interesting thing in baseball today. And he's this unprecedented athlete that's just done so many unprecedented things. God has designed this for these prophetic signs, including what I'm describing that happened on September 19th. But there have been a number of other prophetic Shohei Ohtani signs. Well, anyway, what's also unusual about this player is that he's from Japan. He doesn't speak English. He's a baseball player from Japan, okay? And God is using Japan in his signs for important reasons. One being it's pointing to nuclear weapons in his signs. Another reason, Japan animation, which is obsessed with possession of people, which is why God uses Japan in his signs to hint at the coming mass demonic possession of those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, facilitated through the components that have been put into people from the thing, the mark of the Antichrist. So Japan, in other words, is important. But so this big story of the year is this Japanese baseball player, all right? Now, on April 10th, 2024, Paul Simon performed at the White House for a state dinner for the Prime Minister of Japan. To confirm his signs and connections, God pairs the numbers 9, 23, and 44 together as the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 in high school became the 44th president in 2009. And by the way, this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 9, 23, and 44. And I know these are the numbers because I've been studying his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 6 years. Okay, so again, Shohei Ohtani is from Japan. On April 10th, 2024, Paul Simon performed at the White House for a state dinner for the Prime Minister of Japan. Okay? You know what? I'm going to just add it right here. The song he sang was Graceland. Well, no, never mind. Okay, so that was April 10th, singing for the Prime Minister of Japan at the White House. Okay? And 9:23 and 44 are paired together. The day after Paul Simon performed at the White House, state dinner, for the Prime Minister of Japan on April 10th, the Los Angeles Police Department charged Ohtani's former Japanese interpreter on April 11th with stealing 4 times $4 million from Ohtani. This was exactly 23 weeks, or 44.00% of a calendar year, before Ohtani's big night on September 19th, when he stole 2 bases and hit 3 home runs, which hints at 23, in the 9+9+9th state to join the Union, 2 times 3 days, which hits at 23, before Harris's predicted crash into a baseball stadium on the same day it is predicted that Paul Simon will die. So Paul Simon connects through all of this. He connects through his singing at the White House, through the baseball sign with Ohtani on September 19th, to the date he's predicted to die. Because again, it's amazing. I'll just say it again. 4 times $4 million was 23 weeks, which is 44.00% of the year, to the 2 bases stolen and 3 home runs in the 9+9+9th state, 2 times 3 days before it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a baseball stadium, on the day it is predicted that Paul Simon will die. That's amazing. But also, I didn't include this. The date 410 and 411 are connected to each other in more ways than just the Japanese Prime Minister followed by the interpreter that's Japanese for the baseball player that's from Japan. These signs actually coincide with the death of O.J. Simpson in Los Angeles. The interpreter was charged in Los Angeles, and O.J. Simpson is known for his car chase through the highways of Los Angeles, and Kamala Harris's plane will depart from Los Angeles. Well, anyway, O.J. Simpson died in Los Angeles on the 10th, and the news of his death was reported on the 11th. That's another way in which the 2 dates coincide. Also, O.J. Simpson was born in San Francisco. Kamala Harris is from San Francisco. And on, actually. Yeah. O.J. Simpson was on his way in the car chase to his home. He was homeward bound to his home in Brentwood, Los Angeles, and he was chased up the I-5 highway. Kamala Harris has a $5 million home in Brentwood, California, okay? Her plane flight will be homeward bound, but I believe it'll be bound for Washington, her home in Washington. after she's visiting her mansion in Los Angeles. Okay? And that's just some more of scratching the surface of the science here. Now, if I've piqued your interest, if this all sounds interesting to you, believe me, I've only just started. You need to watch the O.J. Simpson video. There's two. The longer one is the one you need to watch. Okay? Make sure you watch the O.J. Simpson video on this channel. It is so extremely important and extremely interesting. It is an absolute necessity that you watch it. Okay? But these parallels are so amazing. And there's more to the story, though. It's very important. Because O.J. Simpson died 7 + 7 + 7 days after the plane that was on its way to Japan dropped its wheel onto the Hertz parking lot in the San Francisco airport. And 7 + 7 + 7 is relevant because the Israelites enacted a symbolic 3 sets of 7 before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. And the I-5 chase of O.J. Simpson was known for representing Hertz. More than he was known for being a football player, he was known for his commercials for the Hertz rental car company, which is where the wheel landed in San Francisco, the home of O.J. Simpson. And O.J. Simpson also played football for the San Francisco 49ers. Kamala Harris is the 49th vice president, who is from San Francisco. The reason why the wheel landed on the Hertz parking lot is because, and the I-5 highway and Kamala Harris's $5 million mansion, is because of 5G Hertz frequencies that will be used to trigger the components that are in people from the thing, which will then facilitate delta brainwaves and trigger mass demonic possession of these people. Which is why the first lyric in the song Graceland, which is the song Paul Simon sang on the day that O.J. Simpson died, begins with him traveling through the Mississippi Delta, because it hints at delta brainwaves, frequencies, that will facilitate demonic possession. But that will all be triggered by the 5G frequencies. Okay? And so. Now, O.J. Simpson went to jail in Las Vegas, and he was released. And part of the chase was not only down the I-5, but also the US 91 highway. And he was released from jail in Las Vegas on the same day as the deadliest mass shooting in US history, which was in Las Vegas at the Route 91 Music Festival. The music festival is named Route 91, and O.J. Simpson was released in Las Vegas on the same day. And he was chased down the U.S. Route 91. And that's because of what I'm saying, of the slaughter that's coming. Because things that come out of guns and go into people, mass shootings, are symbolic of the things that come out of things and go into people. And the shooter shot from the 32nd floor. The name Obama is equal to 32 of the Mandalay Hotel, and the name Obama is equal to 32 in simple English gematria. Okay. In the White House, at the state dinner, and believe me, you still need to watch the O.J. Simpson video. In the White House, at the state dinner for the Prime Minister of Japan, Simon sang his song Graceland. Simon's album Graceland was released on August 25th, 1986, exactly 457 months before the predicted death of Paul Simon and Harris's predicted plane crash into a baseball stadium. 457 is the 88th prime number. The day after Simon sang Graceland at the White House, to the Prime Minister of Japan was the day that the Japanese interpreter for the Japanese player Otani was charged for stealing $8 plus $8 million from him. The Graceland album was released exactly 8 times 8th prime number, which is 19, of months before Paul Simon sang Mrs. Robinson at Yankee Stadium. Through his song, Sound of Silence, Paul Simon is symbolic of the sound of silence that John heard for about a half an hour in heaven, which is mentioned in Revelation chapter 8. This is why the release of Simon's Graceland album connects with the 88th prime number to his predicted death. It points to Revelation chapter 8 and the sound of silence. The sound of silence in heaven that John heard was then followed by the 7 trumpets of judgment and destruction, which is why Paul Simon's last album is 7 Psalms. Paul Simon's death, and by the way, the last song at the prophetic reunion concert, late in the evening, is a song involving trumpets. And Paul Simon is symbolism for the sound of silence that's followed by the 7 trumpet judgments. That's why it's late in the evening. It's a metaphor from God that's saying time is up. It's late for America to repent and turn back to God. That's why the last song is late in the evening. Furthermore, it's believed that either Paul Simon or Kamala Harris will die at 3 a.m. on the Wednesday because of the album Wednesday morning 3 a.m., which was released the day before Kamala Harris was born. As I'm about to explain. So I'm just about to repeat myself here, actually. So Paul Simon's death will be a brief period of calm before the judgment and destruction of America will commence. The song Sound of Silence and Simon and Garfunkel's first album, Wednesday morning 3 a.m., were released the day before Kamala Harris was born, which is why it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die on a Wednesday. Either Paul Simon or Kamala Harris will die at 3 a.m. on Wednesday morning, September 25th, 2024. Simon's Graceland album was released on April 25th, 1986, 660 weeks and 6 days, which is at 666, the number of the Antichrist, before Simon performed Mrs. Robinson at Yankee Stadium. This is also 12 years and 8 months, and this hints at G128, which is the word in the Greek concordance for the Ethiopian. The Ethiopian in the book of Acts in the Bible was a court official of the Queen of Egypt who was in charge of all of her treasure and was on a journey back to Egypt. The song Graceland, Paul Simon's song Graceland, is about a journey that Simon made to the King of Rock's Graceland mansion, symbolism for a king's palace, in Memphis, as in Memphis, Egypt, in an area of the country that is nicknamed Little Egypt. God uses the number 128 in his signs to point to the Ethiopian in the Bible as symbolism for the future Antichrist king who will be in the White House, as the mansion, as in the King of Rock's mansion, where Paul Simon sang Graceland. This future Antichrist king is being symbolized by the Ethiopian in the Bible, this future Antichrist king, who was born in East Africa, near Ethiopia, Kenya, Barack Obama. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon, Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the BitChute.com or the Odyssey.com channel. And do it now in case you aren't able to later.